Well, let's get you some analysis ahead of that announcement around the Gauteng reconfiguration. Joining us is Professor Kedibone Phago. He is a political analyst and director of the School of Government Studies at Northwest University. Prof, thanks very much as always for joining us. It's good to talk to you. And just thinking back to yesterday's announcement of the ANC's reconfigured KZN leadership, there's yet again been a lot of talk of renewal on the part of the ANC, at least according to the Secretary General.
Right, Michelle, and thank you for having me. So my view and perspective is that we have seen this coming some few months back when there was tensions between the Gauteng, Panyaza, Lesufi, and Mbalula, as well as Bekimtolo in KZN and Mbalula as the Secretary General of the ANC. And so the build up to this moment tells us that the battle actually has now, sort of peaked, and that it went to the side of Mbalula. But we're not sure, from where we are sitting, that actually these kinds of interventions are addressing the real problem that the ANC is facing. But it can actually even be much bigger than that, which I think it actually is, that the part of the reason the ANC finds itself in this kind of situations with declining support, especially from voters, is that there are serious governance problems. South Africans are not receiving services. So we're not sure if these kinds of interventions are really talking to the actual issues on the table, because strengthening ANC as a political party may be something good, but perhaps looking into the ANC as a governing party and what it is able to do may actually even be much better.
Yeah. It's taken a while for us to get to this point. Coming from the May 2024 elections, that announcement was made to reconfigure two of the worst performing provinces for the ANC, Gauteng and KZN. And it's taken us now to February. Since May last year, it's taken us to February now to have these announcements, the end of February, mind you, to have these announcements on the reconfigured PECs for these two provinces. How much longer then does it take to embark on this rebuilding program, to quote the Secretary General of the ANC, this rebuilding program to build the ANC as a formidable force, root and branch? How long does that take, given that we've got local government elections just moments away?
So I think that is a very proper analysis, Michelle. My take is that, in fact, what we had earlier, and part of the reason this took this long, was that there was a clear division in the top 7 of the ANC, that there were those that were in support of the reconfigurations and those that were not. And this is actually essentially the contestation of power struggle within the organization. And we know that the President Cyril Ramaphosa is not going to come back in the next round. And I think this is actually taking a cue from this current situation, that people are already lining themselves to say who is going to take over. And so the slates are emerging. But we will see this much better probably after their coming NGC. And as you rightly pointed out, that time is not on their side, because at the same time they need to be rallying and putting plans in place to prepare for the local government elections next year. So it is really going to be very interesting to see if these interventions were not too little too late to be put in place.
Professor Phago, are you looking at these two announcements for Gauteng and KZN, also keeping in mind that the MK party, I believe it was on Monday, also announced new leadership for their provincial structures? Is that on your mind as well as you look at these announcements by the ANC?
Indeed, it is, and it's quite interesting because the MK factor, in fact, there are surveys that are making rounds at the moment, showing MK declining to about 12% from 14%, and ANC nationally also declining from 42 that we have now to around 32 or so, and seeing DA going to around 25%. If we were going to go for elections, now. And this tells you that whatever we are seeing playing out for ANC and as well as for MK are not yet bearing fruits. And it is in fact a time opportune for them to say, even if they can lose the 2026 local government elections, but they need to be preparing very strongly for the national and provincial government elections in 2029. So and for me, I don't think that if MK continues in the current trajectory that is taking with all the infighting at the highest level, that it will actually make it as it is to 2029.
So given what you've just told us about the polling around, what the outcomes of the election would be if we went to the polls now, what the party is saying about being a party of 40%. This was another quote from the Secretary General from yesterday. We are a party of 40% and we need to act. What I'm inferring from that statement is that the ANC is looking to increase its share of the vote come next year and come 2029. Is that possible?
It is possible, Michelle. And I think the ANC understands that it needs to get its house in order. But I think the problem for me is how they go about doing that. For now, what the messaging that has been coming through and that has also been giving DA some leverage in this situation is to make sure that the ANC focuses on the core issues that societies are facing of service delivery. So if, for example, you listened to the Premier, the Gauteng Premier State of the Province address, it was not really a very inspiring speech because he's talking about what they are seeing, what they are thinking of doing, what they are planning, instead of concretely saying that we have addressed so many social problems, so many traffic lights that are not working, we have fixed. So he's not really bringing communities into his confidence. And this is really what is killing the ANC. Until they are able to address those core governance issues, I don't think that their interventions at the structural, at the level of their structures will bring, the kind of outcomes they are looking for.
It's ultimately these bread and butter issues that resulted in the outcomes of the May 2024 elections. What's your take on, whether the ANC has learned the lesson that was shown to them by those who went to the polls, that if you don't address the everyday issues, potholes, electricity, water is probably one of the biggest challenges facing our communities at the moment, that you will lose the vote?
That is actually the lesson they need to learn, because this is not only happening in Gauteng, it's actually widespread. It has been normalized that we are now driving and there are potholes, there are mayors, there are premiers. Nobody cares about the South Africans. And I think the May elections last year have been very decisive and have sent a very strong message. But one thing that is, is a little bit controversial, and I will indicate it, is that ANC is focusing on strengthening its structures and making sure that they go all out to get membership. But I don't think that is really where their money should be. Their money should be looking at who they have at their disposal and how to use those individuals with governance and leadership skills to consolidate their where they are governing in provinces, in municipalities. Until they get that right, I don't think that any of the interventions they are putting in place will really be any meaningful in any way.